Hello, I'm Simon Needle. I'm Strategic Lead for Urban Forest and Nature at Birmingham City Council. And this is the presentation that we gave to the Birmingham Green Champions a few days ago on our A to B roads programme. And this is looking at the changing the management of amenity mowing areas to support our nature recovery in urban areas. So why do we need nature to recover? Well, the Wildlife Trust's Nature Recovery Handbook that was produced in 2018 sets out many of the reasons why we need nature to recover. But a big part of this really, I think, when we're looking at urban areas is how nature impacts us and I suppose improves our lives. For many of us, our material standard of living is still improving, but our lifestyles are unsustainable and overlook the value of natural systems, even though they underpin everything we do. We need healthy soil to grow food in, clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and green space for exercise and relaxation. No one disputes this, yet our farming and planning systems have often taken us in the opposite direction. Sir John Lawton, who led the government review of England's wildlife sites, said there is compelling evidence that they are generally too small, too isolated, and we need more space for nature. The City of Nature Plan, which was produced in February 2022 and has been adopted by the City Council, is a 25-year plan that has 5 themes and with aims for each theme. One theme is about the green living parts of our city, the plants and the habitats they form that make life possible. And this recognises the part that the natural environment plays for us. And it supports the delivery of the National Nature Recovery Network with its focus on enhancing landscapes, improving connectivity between wildlife-rich places, climate resilience, protecting of existing natural environments and supporting access to nature, health and well-being. Amongst those green city outcomes, we look at the change in how we build our public realm, providing improved connectivity, looking at green corridors, enhancing the network of green urban spaces, opportunities to help citizens make better use of green space outside their home, amongst others. The Nature Recovery Strategy of Birmingham, well, the actions set out in the City of Nature Plan align with BCC's climate adaptation plans, our biophilic city status and several statutory requirements for nature recovery. So in 2021, the Environment Act came into force and that brought in several statutory duties and requirements that local authorities must act on. And these are a diverse and comprehensive nature recovery network, to be able to manage and oversee biodiversity net gain through the planning system and consider existing plans and policies, make changes and action, and most importantly, report on actions taken to support biodiversity and nature recovery. And this is as part of the extended biodiversity duty set out in Section 40 of the Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act. The government's Environmental Improvement Plan, published in January 2023, is the first review of the Environmental 25-year plan and sets out plans for significantly improving the natural environment. By 2030, the government has committed to halt the decline in species abundance and protect 30% of UK land and seas. And by 2042, the government has also committed to increase species abundance by at least 10% from 2030, surpassing 2022 levels, restore or create at least 500,000 hectares of a range of wildlife-rich habitats, reduce the risk of species extinction, and restore 75% of our 1 million hectares of terrestrial and freshwater protected sites to a favourable condition, therefore securing their wildlife value for the long term. So what does this look like in Birmingham? So we've been doing some work with the Wildlife Trust and using the data that we have on habitats and species to set out, I suppose, our provisional local nature recovery network. And in the map here, we can see there are areas of land that are set out as dark green, and these are core ecological zones. They're sites where there are extensive habitats and lots of, I suppose, a range of species. So flowers, trees, birds, insects, etc., living in these sites. You'll see that there are also linear corridors that connect some of these together. So we've got sites that follow along the River Ray, the Bourne Brook, River Cole, the River Tame, as well as the canal network as well in the city as well. So these are providing connectivity between sites. The lighter green areas are those where we would like to make efforts on sort of, I suppose, providing a buffer or expanding these sites. So can we, within these areas, improve habitats or create new habitats that make these areas larger and more joined up with those core ecological areas? The purpley looking areas on this map are sites which are currently open space. They may not be particularly diverse in terms of biodiversity, but they offer an opportunity for stepping stone sites, so wildlife can move between those more ecologically rich sites. So acting, like I said, there as a stepping stone feature across the city. This brings us on to changing the management of the grass areas. So starting with No Mow May. That was a movement or a campaign by Plant Life UK, whose aims were to promote awareness of the decline of flora species and encourage a more appropriate consideration and management of garden spaces and grasslands. We've lost approximately 97% of flower-rich meadows since the 1930s, and with them are gone the vital food needed by pollinators like bees and butterflies. And they highlighted the fact that your lawn can help. A healthy lawn with some long grass and wildflowers benefits wildlife, tackles pollution, and can even lock away carbon below ground. And with over 20 million gardens in the UK, even the smallest grassy patches add up to a significant proportion of land, which, if managed properly, can deliver enormous gains for nature, communities, and climate. And that's why since 2019, Plant Life calls for people, particularly with those gardens, to get involved in No Mow May every year. So, I mean, with growing awareness of this campaign, many people were, I suppose, lobbying the city council to change the way that we manage our grass areas, and particularly highways verges in that respect. So in 2023, a trial of No Mow May was run in 4 wards in Birmingham, but there was a blanket cessation of mowing occurred in that month of May, with a return to mowing in June. Appropriateness of the location and the nature of the grass ward was not really taken into consideration, leading to very mixed results, and public engagement was limited. So although there was some support, particularly within those wards, there were an increased number of complaints from residents in those trial wards. The No Mow May campaign is simple to understand and apply, however, but there are several issues with such a simple message and approach in the urban amenity areas. So the campaign was primarily aimed at domestic gardens and perhaps also those rural local authorities where highway verges are likely to be relics of former meadows, and you've got a much sparser population of residents there. The standard approach is not well suited to more urban environments, especially as urban verges tend to be floristically poor. And it's an oversimplification and not generally ecologically desirable just to cut areas of long grass, not to cut areas in May and then cut them in June, as that's a key food source for a range of invertebrates. And that's now recognised by Plant Life, who recommends leaving cutting for as long as possible. And of course, there are some grassland habitat types that only thrive because mowing simulates the constant grazing of herbivores like sheep or cows or rabbits. To stop mowing these areas would therefore ecologically degrade them. So to promote nature recovery in the city, we need to consider and change how our grass areas are managed. However, a more considered approach and longer term view is needed if this is to be successful and accepted by the wider population. So, as we said, not all public grassed areas will deliver significant biodiversity benefits, supporting the local nature recovery network if just left unmown or have reduced mowing regimes implemented. Some areas will need to be retained as regularly mown for amenity reasons or for safety implications such as highway visibility. Many areas would need some form of intervention to increase floristic diversity, while other areas, due to their high nutrient level or small size, may never produce much floristic diversity through just a changing mowing, but could be enhanced with spring or autumn bulb planting, for example. There are, however, several co-benefits of reduced mowing, even on areas of low floristic diversity, and we've picked up on these as well. So, increased carbon capture, decrease the carbon footprint of mowing operations. So we've got reduced operations by heavy plant equipment, which will obviously reduce the use for fuel, but it also reduces soil compaction, leading to a greater number of soil-dwelling invertebrates and better soil health. That increased aeration of soils helps increase the infiltration rates of stormwater. Both of those increase canopy growth of trees, supported by the above, which in turn supports the urban forest master plan. Decreased damage to trees caused by mowers and other equipment also helps to have more healthier trees, which again looks to increase canopy growth. And finally, I suppose the decrease in slowed surface water runoff of stormwater during these events. So that longer grass actually helps retain that water on the verges longer. So we need to promote all of these aspects when implementing the changes in management, and that's what we said. It must be a long-term sustainable change. There are several further considerations as well that we must give to successfully roll out a change in management. And so these include adopting a clear and robust process for decision making on what will be implemented, where, and in order to minimise future complaints, but also deliver maximum biodiversity benefits. Using extensive publicity on the changes that are made. This includes the reasons for the changes and how it's been delivered. Using on-site signage to promote our work, and taking a strategic citywide approach to rollout. So not necessarily ward by ward, but considering where the biggest nature recovery network benefits could be delivered quickly and easily with minimal impacts on residents. And a review of the machinery purchase and use, as the existing machinery may not be sufficient or effective or efficient enough to deliver the required management objectives. So changing this over time in line with the expansion and change of management. Training for staff will also be required to help enable to identify and implement the changes and explain this to our residents as we get informal inquiries, and a plan to engage citizens and special interest groups in identifying potential locations and monitoring the results. And if we look at the two photos that are on the right-hand side of the screen here, this is what we're also saying as well. We want these areas to look like they are managed, and it's an intended process as well, rather than the sort of the more neglected look that occurred with just the sort of blanket cessation of the no-mow in the bottom image. So the top one there is just showing central strip left unmown with edge strips and visibility displays mown in for highway safety and also to give that managed look. So for 2024, the proposal was to roll out an initiative called A to B roads, and this was looking at the strategic approach to start a wider rollout of systematic change in mowing regimes, focusing on key transport corridors, typically the A roads. And so this would start with a cessational reduction in mowing on central reservations, aiming to have the least impact on residents while still delivering a highly visible and successful initiative. We reviewed the 10 constituencies in the city and highlighted the fact that there's probably around 140 kilometres of road that had central reservation that had potential on it. And once we've reviewed those in terms of operational aspects, I brought it down to around 100 kilometres of grass verges that we could change that mowing in. So that's looking down to sort of mowing strips and only require maybe an annual flail cut where the growth is limited. In some areas, though, cut and collect will be an operation, and that's actually, it comes to around the same cost as the annual frequent mowing revenue sums. So although we've got changes in management and reductions in mowing, overall it's probably around cost neutral on there. But there may be savings in time as we look through to change machinery, and maybe we've decreased the vigour of some of the grass verges. Deciding where we can change the management of grass habitats. So although we've said that we were looking in 2024 at central reservations, we had to think about how we would do this. We need to develop a clear and robust process for decision making on what management changes would be implemented and where. So we'd have to have a balance, retaining as much amenity use as possible, but delivering the maximum biodiversity and environmental benefits. So started by making a decision tree for highways verges. That made it the best place to start. So we're looking at what is the amenity function of the grassed area. So is it a highways verge? Is it housing amenity verge? Parks or other open space? Educational schools, or cemeteries and crematoria? As we said, we started with the highways verges. So there are a number of different highways verges that you would see across the city, and I'm just going to cover these briefly. So ribbon verges. So these are the long linear verges that you might see typically found at the back of pedestrian pavements or between the pavement and the footway and the carriageway in residential areas. We've got traffic islands and roundabouts located at the intersection of multiple roads. These typically have no pedestrian pavements or pedestrian access on them. We've got broad verges. Now, these are found in the lower density residential areas and urban fringe. Typically have few footways across them, but may sit between a sort of more natural area and a roadway, or even some housing areas, but actually set well back from the road. And then finally, we've got central reservations, and these are going to be found typically on our main or dual carriageways. And apart from maybe a few crossing points, they'll have a few footways on them. We're going to show some examples of what these are in the next two slides. So we've got two examples here of ribbon verges on the left, one with no off-street parking, so where people who maybe have cars are going to have to park alongside the road and cross the grass verge to get to their property. And then those areas with off-street parking is the one below. And then wide verge examples are given on the right-hand side there. So one between the edge of the roadway, footway, and a school that's set well back, and another one in a residential area where we've got sort of quite large properties but set well back from the roads. We've got some quite broad verges there. We've also got a roundabout on this one here, which could have some area left. There's probably few visibility issues on that. It's quite a centrally located roundabout with good access in and out of it. And the final image there is the central reservation, where generally there's not going to be many issues in terms of visibility along the length, but there may be where we've got intersections across it, and those issues have to be managed. So yes, looking at the decision tree, we've got those four different types across the top there, the central reservations indicated there by the red circle. And the things we were looking at is the reservation large enough to retain a sort of 50 centimetre, 1 metre mow strip around the edge and leaving a meaningful area unmown in the middle. If the answer was no, then that probably wasn't suitable for relaxed mowing, because we're not going to be getting much benefit from the sort of the retained grass area. But we could look at enhancing those through flowering bulbs planting, for example, to get some spring interest there. If the answer is yes, then invariably we could leave that, but we may still need to consider whether we need to modify that verge going forward, particularly if it's a very coarse grass area. We might want to change that over time. But invariably all of those were yes. But you see, it's not a simple process. There were lots of thoughts having to go through, and considerations to be made on that. Here's an example of some of the mapping we just did. This was Northfield constituency, so right in the south of Birmingham. And within that constituency, there were 17 kilometres of highways with central reservations that were currently under a 10 cut per annum, and that could be reduced down to just the edge cuts via VRT. Some of these linear road routes also go past areas of high ecological value as well. So the main A38 linking places like Licky Hills and Cofton Park through Longbridge and Northfield through to Manor Farm Park and the Griffinsbrook and Bournebrook areas. So taking quite a long route there, but we've got a tree-lined grassy route that it provides good connectivity with these ecological areas. We've also started to roll out on-site signage where we've been undertaking the work, and we've also mirrored that on web pages as well. So we've got information about why we're doing the work, how we're doing it, how we've selected the sites, what that means, and all of the benefits that doing that provides. And like I say, these signs, exactly like the one you can see there, are being posted out on the central reservations. Not necessarily for people to read all of what's there, but really as a marker to show that actually what's happening is an intended process and not, like we've said before, something that's just been forgotten about. And finally, I suppose, what's the potential for further rollout over the next 5 years? So what we want to do next is look at work with our grounds maintenance team and look at the review of the machinery purchase and use, as existing machinery may not be suitable for the types of management that we need in the future. It's been fine for the process that we've been going through now, that regular cutting, but those machines are designed to cut grass that's only perhaps a certain height, and when we get longer, thicker grass that needs collecting, those mowers may not be always the most effective and efficient to do that. Looking at the training required for staff as well, we went through that decision tree, and you can see how complex that can be. So again, that we can't go through every single verge on a map and do that. So we'll need to work with the staff who are here to be able to identify those areas and I suppose look at changing that management as they go round, but also getting some information and getting some training for them about what the flower species are and what those types of management are and how to explain this to residents across the city. We're also going to review comments and complaints received from this year and see what we can do to change our communications and if there's anything that we do need to change. And I suppose a key thing is getting some feedback from citizens and special interest groups as well, actually understanding what is out there growing on our verges, growing on which verges and where, and that will help inform what work we might need to do to enhance some verge areas and which ones we can just improve the management on for the existing flora that's there. So that's a major part of what we need to do next. And then, of course, we've got considering creating Birmingham's buzzing parks. So as part of our 25-year plan, we've said that we'll be looking at all our parks and open spaces, understanding the biodiversity benefit, the biodiversity value within there, and looking to see what we can do to improve the biodiversity in those sites, making nature-rich spaces on people's doorsteps. If you want to get involved or find out more, you can email cityofnature@birmingham.gov.uk or visit the webpage, A to B roads, reducing mowing and helping cities ecology. So that's the end of our presentation. So thanks very much for listening. And like I said, if you need to contact us, you can get us on the details on the page. Thank you.